And good morning and welcome to America's Web Radio. We've got a great show lined up for you today on David's Pick. And as we always do, we got Paul Hanson on, and we're going to be inviting him on in just a second. But before we get started with Paul, we'll do our normal thing, which is in memory of my good friend J. Roy Ritchie that recently died of from the effects of Agent Orange. If you go to our homepage, we have a J. Roy Ritchie memorial, and it's the Veterans of Veteran Prayer Line. And if you're a veteran or know a veteran that needs prayer, just send their name to us and their rank, and we'll be sure and on some of our other veteran shows, we'll be glad to mention their name and ask that other veterans pray for these veterans. So with that being said, we're going to take our moment of silence, and then we'll come back with a cadence call, and then we'll get into our show with Paul Hanson right after this. So if you don't mind, let's take a moment and think of our brothers and sisters that have gone before us and that are on active duty now. Bless our veterans and put your arm around those that are on active duty and need thy help throughout the day. With that being said, amen. And we appreciate everyone listening. And again, if you have need a prayer or know of someone that does, let us know. With that being said, we're going to go on to one of my favorite things and always puts a smile on my face. And we love those Jodies. And with that, let's welcome our friend, Mr. Paul Hanson. Paul, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine, David. How are you doing?
I'm doing well for a beautiful Thursday morning. The sun is out, and we're going to put a smile on folks' face somewhere or the other. And we do appreciate you taking the time to come and be on our show. Paul is a Vietnam veteran, and he did his AIT at Fort Polk, which I was very lucky that it was next door to my home state, Texas, but in the infinite wisdom of the military, they sent me to California, and I had a beautiful basic and AIT at Fort Ord, and I don't envy you being there with those eagle-sized mosquitoes at Fort Polk.
Well, while I was there, it wasn't quite so bad. We about froze to death. It was in December.
Ah. Well, you and I must have been on active duty about the same time. I went to Fort Ord the first part of January and left there in May.
Yeah, I was drafted in September and did basic training in Fort Lewis, Washington, and then AIT at Fort Polk, and then they sent me to sunny Southeast Asia in February of '68, just in time for Tet.
That had to be, I don't know how old you were when you did that, but that had to be just the name Tet, sort of puts the fear into you.
Well, it didn't take long after you got there.
Well, let me ask. I did not serve in country, and what was it like? Did you feel like you were really prepared to join the troops let me back up. Seasoned troops, and I'm sure you had somebody that was a mentor from the time you got off the plane until you were knee deep in Tet.
Well, you don't know if you were prepared or not because everybody you were with was the same position you were in. And when you arrived in country, they didn't put you directly into the jungle. They had what they called a week's orientation. And I think that was a lot to acclimatize you to the temperature and the humidity. But during that week, on one night, they did take you out into the jungle on ambush as a bunch of new guys, and thankfully it was a pretty secure location where they didn't have a lot of contact, so nothing happened during that week. And then they broke you up. It's not like today's military where they send a unit at a time where everybody knows everybody. We were all drafted, and I had one individual from my hometown that I was drafted with that I knew pretty well, but after that week's orientation, they split us up. He could type, so he became the battalion commander's secretary, and I couldn't type, but I could shoot, so they sent me with the 1st Armored Cav out into the jungle.
That's one thing I have said many times is that the best course I ever took in school, from the 1st grade through college, through getting my degree, was typing. And that, there just weren't that many people in the military that could type, and I could still do 60 words a minute, and
yeah.
Boy, they sucked me up and put me in the office almost immediately, and I typed my own honorable discharge papers, as a matter of fact. So,
well, you didn't get to have all the fun that we did.
That's true. I didn't, and I. From the tales that we've heard from other veterans, I think I'm glad I missed some of that fun.
Yeah.
But, let me ask you something, and this was not on. This has nothing to do with you, other than you're a veteran, as am I, and I about exploded yesterday when I heard this, and I just can't think of anything bad enough that can happen to whoever did this. But did you hear about the situation in Washington with the Michigan and Indiana Guard?
No, I did not.
Well, and I have no clue who was feeding them or has been feeding them, but I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, and I think it happened to the Michigan Guard first and then to the Indiana Guard, but they were fed their meal for the, evening, lunch or evening, whatever. The meat was not thoroughly cooked, and on top of that, it had steel shavings in it. And, a number of the Michigan Guard got sick. I think something like 50 or so members of the Guard got sick, and then the rest of them just didn't eat it. They got word of it quick enough. But I can't imagine, like one of the newscasters or opinion people said, it was no accident to get steel shavings in meat, And I hope they find whoever did that and they hang him upside down at the first oak tree,
Absolutely. There's no excuse for that.
No, and it basically made me sick to hear that anybody, you know, what people don't understand, or somewhat, I guess, is these guys, and it's absurd that we have 5,000. We have more reservists in Washington, D.C., more troops in D.C. than we do in Iraq and Iran. And this is just, it's absurd. And then to have something like an incident like this happen, people don't understand that these guys and women have given up their jobs, their businesses, and whatever to serve you and me and the rest of the country. I don't agree with the length of time they've been there, and they should be home taking care of their families and their businesses. And
well, the guard today is not like it was 50 years ago. The guard was you got to go camping in meetings once every 2 weeks, I guess?
No, once a month.
Yeah, once a month. So now the guard gets called up to active duty every other day.
Well, it does, and that's because we have no military
right.
that are that many active duty, and particularly I was 11 Bravo, which is light arms infantry, for those that don't know. And
that's what I was, yeah.
Yeah, and that's it's people, and it's not. People think that it's the nation, but the Guard and Reserve is Georgia National Guard, Georgia Army Reserve, or whatever state. They are a state operation, and the governor is the one that calls them out. Now, as soon as they've been called out, they can be activated and become federal and be paid by the feds. But, the Guard and Army Reserve are somewhat misunderstood, but we're gonna clarify that in the next few weeks very strongly. But I just
not to back up, but you talk about metal shavings in the food. Periodically, when we would get out of the jungle back to a civilian area, if we had an opportunity, we would go and eat with the locals. And then found out that some of them were putting glass in with the food to eat up your intestines. And when that came out, then we were, told not to eat with them anymore. So, metal shavings, what's the difference if the enemy does it or somebody locally? It's still not, it's something that could really hurt you.
Oh, yeah. And the enemy is one thing. Your homegrown enemy is a whole different thing, and
that's a whole different thing.
The homegrown enemy, whoever did this, and I do hope they find them. Nothing bad enough could happen to them, in my opinion.
Right, they should treat them like the enemy. You're right.
Yep. So, with that being said, I have to ask, since you and I went through the same MOS. When you got to Vietnam, did you think, okay, survival, escape, and evasion, don't let me down now? And
half the time when I was in the country, I didn't have any idea where I was. Escape and evasion would have been pretty hard. It's either rice patties or jungle canopy.
So, what was your first impression? Did you, like I said earlier, did you feel like you were trained for this and ready to rock and roll after your basic
wars are fought by kids or young people. Were not kids, but 18, 19, 20-year-olds. If you're 76 like I am today, you don't go to war. You know better. But wars are fought by kids, so you think you're invisible even when people on your left and right get shot. It missed you, so you're invincible.
Yeah, but I will ask this. We've over well, I tell you what, I'm going to ask it or tell it when I come back. We're going to take our first break right quick. I let time get away from me too often, and we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with Paul Hanson right after this.
Hi, this is Rocky Blair, former four-time Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Vietnam veteran. As a board member, I'd like to talk to you about Warriors.
It goes fast, doesn't it, Paul?
It does.
American heroes, soldiers, police, fire, EMT, and their families recover from the psychological harm caused by career-induced stress. Over the last 20 years, broken relationships have been a major causal factor for the highest documented divorce rate and resulting suicides in this population. This program, From Warriors to Citizen, is delivered free to families by professionals, all whom served in uniform and understand the needs to be addressed.
Paul, you got a Spec 5, did you say?
Go to our website,
Yes.
warriorstocitizen.org.
No, I was hard 5. Buck Sergeant.
Oh, okay.
We're sharing this information.
You had the stripes, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
If you live to serve and want to make an even bigger difference, consider joining the U.S. Army. With training in fields like medical care, linguistics, and engineering, an Army career can amplify your efforts with humanitarian opportunities all over the world. Plus, you'll receive competitive pay and incredible benefits, so you'll be taken care of, too. Learn more at GoArmy.com.
This is America's Web Radio. Would you like to have a show, talk about your business, or express your opinion on America's Web Radio? Just email gm@americaswebradio.com and we'll get back to you. Thank you.
And we're back on America's Web Radio and David's Pick with our guest today, Mr. Paul Hanson, and we're delighted to have him on. And Paul and I can relate because we went through the same basic and AIT, and that's where our relation stops because he went on to NAM and I went home. But it is interesting. And Paul, we were talking about when you got there. Did you feel like you were totally trained to do the job that light arms infantry when you got to NAM?
You're invincible. You don't get a lot of training, but I had a gentleman from Phoenix, Arizona call me the other day that was in the same unit that I was in. And I hadn't talked to anybody from that unit in 50 years. Don't remember most of the names. You learn real fast not to get real close to anybody, but when you're in the country in that situation, you're the new guy, but in a month's time, you're not a new guy anymore. Then you're one of the battle hardened and the weary, and after that, it's just a trudging everyday thing. I was an RTO, so your backpack weighs between 80 and 100 pounds, and in the heat and humidity, you patrol all day.
And get bitten by a few strange bugs, I think, huh?
Well, there's bugs and snakes, and they had a flying beetle that was probably 2 inches long and 1 inch in diameter, and they said, the one without the horn is okay, but the one with the horn, don't let it bite you.
You and I were kidding about that war was for the young, and I say we really weren't kidding. It was it's
a fact. Yeah,
it's a fact.
Yeah.
But by the same token, I don't think I've interviewed any veteran that I said, if country called again, would you go? If the country said, we need you, Paul, would you go back in?
Absolutely.
And I think that's what people don't understand about veterans is that's everybody's attitude, not just yours and not just mine, but everybody's attitude. The other, and I don't want to get too far into the show before I ask you this, and maybe give you some time to think about it. I know that you're very involved with the American Legion up in Dahlonega, and So you all get together and you'll be sitting around. And the one hardball question that I promised you, no real hardballs, but the one hardball question I have to ask, and I ask everyone, is when you all are together, can you name one veteran that you know that can tell only one story?
Oh, no. I think every veteran is full of them. Yeah.
if you get one, you get them all.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I'm a vet. Of course, I don't come around a lot of Vietnam veterans. Don't talk about it much. It's just something that you file back in the back of your head. And I know I'm carrying the PTSD. I've been self-employed my whole life, and you don't have much time for people that aren't professionals, and you snap and you get short really quick. And but when you do talk about it, it's 90% of the time it's about the funny things that happened.
Right.
That, you know, if it happened in civilian life, you'd say, geez, I wonder why I didn't die. Doing stuff like that or being in that situation. But in that type of environment, it was just another day, and you laugh about it because it was pretty funny.
Well, and, you know, there's we talk about this many times. You made a statement which a lot of friends have made that, you know, and a lot of the cause of PTSD is that you make a friend and the next day horrific things may have happened to that friend. And so a lot of guys, and I assume women too, but a lot of guys, well, it's just as easy, or it's better for my mental stability just not to make that many friends or get that close to somebody. And,
well, that's what I was saying earlier was in today's military, you go as a group, so you know everybody, or you're friends with most of them, and that's got to make it really hard.
Yeah.
In my situation, they sent a plane load to Vietnam, and I knew one person on the plane, and we went through the week orientation together, and then he was sent to battalion where I went to a company, and you don't know anybody. And, you know, the first 3 months, you kind of get to know a few of the guys in your platoon and around you. And we got into one heavy firefight where the 6 of the closest guys that I was close to didn't make it. And after that, I didn't get close to anybody. You just kind of build up a shield, and you got their back and they've got yours, but you don't make close friends. You
know, we talk about that and frequently about the fact that that's what you learn in basic and AIT, and then when you go into a hot zone, is that you know, they're depending on you, and it's sort of an unsaid or something known, but that you have their back and they have your back, and whether you know them well or not, you can. This is what our military is taught. Let me ask you something, because we did share the same basic and AIT. You know, when I was in, I was very fortunate. The draft had just ended, and we were into the lottery situation, and a lot of us had volunteered and or joined the reserves or whatever. And so we sort of had and most of us were college graduates, or some had some college or whatever, but we were a whole different breed, so to speak, of other people in our unit. But you know, there were times going through basic and AIT, and you know, as you were doing something or somebody was yelling at you, and why in the hell are we doing this? And then later on, and even today, every now and then, I'll think of something that happened during basic or AIT and say, you know, I know why we did that.
Yeah, now you understand. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I look at our military, and we're 240 years old or whatever, and it's probably one of the most perfected jobs in the world. And there's the psychology and the reason for doing it. And as we've gone to war and come out of wars, we've learned something, and then they try to teach it to the next group that's going through basic and AIT. And, we went into Nam, and we were sort of shocked at the fact that I know, being from Texas, I would have been shocked. But what's all this green stuff? And we thought wars were all fought in the open and behind trees, and you could identify your enemy. And yet in Nam, there were many times that folks, you couldn't even identify the enemy, or they were in a cave, or they were in underground or whatever. And it was,
in the jungle so thick, sometimes you put your hand out, you couldn't see it.
Yeah.
But the Army still wanted to fight in the open, so they sprayed Agent Orange on the jungles to defoliate it, and then they sent us in with flamethrowers after it was dead to try to burn it out.
Yeah, we were not prepared. Well, the reality of it is, we were not, in many ways, prepared for Vietnam, as far as the jungle and so forth went. But you turn that right back around, and here we go to the Middle East with green camouflage tanks.
Yeah,
now,
the desert.
In the desert. So they sort of stuck out like sore thumbs. And then they had to bring all the ones they'd shipped over there back to Fort Stewart. And I just happened to be at Fort Stewart touring, and there they were painting all the green APCs and tanks and everything else light sandy color.
Yeah.
So sometimes we're just, as prepared as we aren't prepared, or we don't. I don't know who makes the decision.
I was in the 1st Air Cav, and I think that's where the helicopters really came in and proved to be a good fighting machine. And we carried a lot of C4 with us in the jungle, because every night we'd blow a clearing where the helicopters could come in and bring us hot food. We were fortunate; we got hot food probably 4 or 5 times a week.
Wow!
Even though we changed locations every day, we'd clear out blow trees and clear out an area where the helicopters could come in and land with the Meramite cans and feed us.
An LZ.
An LZ. Yep.
Were you in a situation to use the? What am I thinking about? I'll think about it in a minute. Did you all use a lot of decor and the
Decor? Yeah.
Cleaning out trees and jungle and all that stuff?
Yeah, you'd depend on the size of the tree. You'd wrap 3 or 4 pound sticks of C4 on there with det cord, then back off and get in a foxhole and take them down.
And how about your claymore mines?
Oh yeah, everybody carried a claymore.
And once in a while, took out the C4 in it to light your fires, or
well,
warm up your
dinners? Well, they didn't last that long. We didn't have to worry about that. Oh, for lighting your fires.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you'd pinch off a block to make a little stove out of your C rations and then light a fire with it. Yeah.
It was a different war. You said that you hadn't talked to a friend in a good while, and he called the other night, you said?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit there.
Okay. You said one of your friends had called that you hadn't spoken with in a good while.
Actually, he wasn't a friend. I don't remember him, but he lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and he was trying to contact all of the survivors. We had one real major firefight on May 9th, and I'd received a Purple Heart, and somehow he got my name and phone number and called me and asked me if I'd got my Purple Heart that day and which company I was with. And I told him, and I was with 2nd Platoon, and he was in the 1st Platoon, and he was trying to contact everybody.
Wow.
So that's the first person I've talked to since I left Vietnam about, our particular unit.
That's amazing that he traced you down and got to talk.
Yeah. And he mentioned all people's names, and I probably know them, but it's been so many years, I don't think about it, I can't remember. And I've got some First Air Cav magazines that they printed during Vietnam, which shows a bunch of the helicopter sorties, and I mailed him one of those. I asked him if he'd ever seen them, and he told me the same thing. He says, "Boy, you talk about bring back memories when you look at these guys laying in the bomb craters, and all the trees, as far as you can see, are all blowed up, all the bombing that they had done." And it brought back a lot of memories. I hadn't looked at those magazines myself in probably 10 years,
What was, after the firefight, what was the best sound you could possibly hear?
Silence. After the firefight, they put me on a helicopter and sent me back to the medical rear. I got hit with a piece of shrapnel.
Wasn't that the thump, 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 thump of a Huey coming in, dust off coming in to pick you up?
Oh, that happened during the firefight when the fog lifted enough where we couldn't get any artillery, Huey, or jet support, and the fog was so heavy you could see on the ground, but 15 feet up it was just socked in. And the best sound I heard was a Cobra helicopter coming right over the top of me with miniguns and the 20-millimeter rockets and just showering me with hot brass. And I was glad to see him.
Oh, yeah, I imagine. How effective do you think the Cobra was? And it all started really with the gunships from the Huey gunships, really, didn't it?
Well, the Cobra was the fighting helicopter. It had the rockets and the minigun, and that's all they did was come in for fire support. Plus, the Magic Dragon was the C-150 with all the machine guns on it. That was really a pretty sight at night to watch them open up and cut loose.
Oh, I bet. And they could lay down some cover, couldn't they?
Mm-hmm.
And did they have a cannon on them as well?
I don't know.
For some reason, I was thinking they did, but I know the power of the guns that they had was just absolutely incredible. And they were very strategically used, as I recall, and or believe I've been told. And it was a different war, a different everything. Did you ever? One of the reasons I really wasn't interested, I'm not too big, and I think the Army would have raised my hand to be a tunnel rat, which that. Just the thought of it, I'm claustrophobic, and I couldn't handle that.
Well, that was a volunteer job. You had to be a small, wiry, skinny little guy in order to get into those tunnels.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes a strange individual. I couldn't do it either.
When you say you had to volunteer. I noticed that every now and then the Army volunteered you.
Well, out in the field like that, the officers had to be careful how they volunteered people too.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. How was the mix? You came out as a E5 buck sergeant. And how was the relationship between officers and NCOs. Today, I've noticed my son's a major in the Air Force, and yet he has friends that are NCOs. And back when I was in, the officers were the officers, and everybody else you didn't fraternize.
Yeah, we didn't fraternize with officers. I was close to my lieutenant because I was his radio telephone operator. But when we were set up, he would go sit with the officers, and then I sit with the enlisted men.
Right. And a lot of that has really changed in that their attitude, or I say the military attitude today is that, well, we're all walking and breathing the same air, so we must be all in some ways the same. And it's another thing, too, that I was well taught by a captain, that you never addressed an officer as captain or lieutenant or anything. An LT you could, but a captain or major, you didn't address them as captain or major. You addressed them as sir or madam or ma'am. And but today that's changed as well.
Yeah, in the war zone, you didn't salute officers. They didn't want the enemy to know who was the officer. So you'd call them sir or captain. The captain was with you in the field,
Mm-hmm.
and the lieutenants were lieutenants. So and I wasn't fit for military life when I was discharged. I had 6 months left to serve, and I was put with the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment in Fort Lewis, and as soon as they got me, they put me OPCON to the ROTC summer camp program up in the North Fort, which is a basic training section, and they took 5 of us NCOs, all of us buck sergeants, and gave us some old E8 that was waiting to be discharged and retire, but they wouldn't let him go because it was medical. So he said, if you screw up, we'll just have formation out here at 5 o'clock every morning. And he said, if you don't screw up, you won't see me. So as long as we were on the job I worked in supply for the college ROTC summer camp programs. And as long as we showed up and did our job and kept our nose clean, we could do whatever we wanted to do. So,
well, that wasn't bad duty, was it?
That was pretty good duty. We had a CW4, Colonel Shaw, that was in charge of everything, and that was an amazing older gentleman. He could talk to you, talk on the telephone, and write 3 different things all at the same time and keep it all going. It was just amazing.
Huh. A warrant officer, huh?
A warrant officer, CW4, yep.
That was a confusing, and if I were to go back in today, it would still be confusing. Exactly, a warrant officer is sort of a NCO officer in a way, I guess, but I never really grabbed on to exactly, and most of them back when I was in were pilots, were copter pilots.
Yeah, I don't know anything about his background, but when the IG, the inspecting general, came out, the general called him sir.
Huh.
He was just a sharp old fella. Of course, I was early 20s, and he looked like an old man to me, but yeah, he had to be at least 60.
Wow. Yeah, he was about to retire, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Well, one of the good things, or one of the things that came out of NAM was the all of the different weaponry and needs that were filled and are still being used today. That technical stuff, I guess Vietnam was one of the first places they used starlight scopes, and
well, the starlight scope in Vietnam, You felt like you were toting your suitcase with you. I mean, that thing was huge.
Yep.
And heavy.
And heavy, yes.
Yeah, but it worked,
And yet the technology that we have today, it's the lens on your helmet or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
and that's when the M16 came out. Of course, that one, of course, they say it was the ammo, but that one wasn't very good. It would jam pretty quickly on you.
you had to keep it super clean all the time, didn't you?
Well, it didn't make any difference. Well, you cleaned it all the time, and especially with a helicopter unit, because every time you got picked up or let out someplace, dirt and sand, the first thing you do when you get off a helicopter is you spread out in a perimeter, and you wait a few minutes, and then when nothing happens, then every other person cleans the rifle.
Wow. And they also, initially with the 16, the flash suppressor didn't have the little loop or didn't have the ring at the end of it, and it would get caught up in the jungle, in the stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so they had to. Did you ever carry the Law?
Oh, yeah. I shot the Law, the M79
grenade launcher. Oh, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
That sound, I always I can hear it today, but at the same token, we were firing the M79. Heinz, I believe, Ketchup was running a commercial, and the M79 sounded. The commercial was they were pushing a tomato into a bottle, and it would go thump, and that was exactly the way the M79 sounded.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed.
I've shot both of those. I didn't carry either one of them because most of my time out in the field was a radio telephone operator. I was with the second lieutenant until he got killed, and then shortly after I went in with the command post for the company commander and carried it for him until I got a job in the company rear. I got a job managing the medical company rear at one of the fire bases. And but as an RTO, in addition to carrying the Prick 25, the PRC 25 with an extra battery, then you had to carry 3 smoke grenades, 2 hand grenades, a Claymore mine, and 400 rounds of ammunition.
Yeah, you were a pack mule.
Well, yeah, and then you had to have that in addition to your personal stuff, your food, and your sleeping gear, and you had to have your rucksack and your harness put together so that you could drop everything except your fighting gear in case you had to move fast. You just didn't need your bed if you were going into a firefight.
Right. Paul, we're going to have to take another break. We'll be back with Paul Hanson and stories from Vietnam right after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, join me, Roger B. every
Doing
Tuesday
okay, Paul?
at 1400 hours. Right
Yes,
here
doing
on America's
fine.
Web Radio
Good.
for the Locked and
I
Loaded
would like
show.
to talk a little bit about the memorial markers if we have time.
Yes, sir. We'll do that when we come back.
Okay.
Be sure to join us every Tuesday at 1400 or 2 p.m. for Locked and Loaded on America's Web Radio.
If you live to serve and want to make an even bigger difference, consider joining the U.S. Army. With training in fields like medical care, linguistics, and engineering, an Army career can amplify your efforts with humanitarian opportunities all over the world. Plus, you'll receive competitive pay and incredible benefits, so you'll be taken care of, too. Learn more at GoArmy.com.
Hi, this is Rocky Blair, former 4-time Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Vietnam veteran. As a board member, I'd like to talk to you about Warriors to Citizen, a nonprofit organization that helps American heroes, soldiers, police, fire, EMT, and their families recover from the psychological harm caused by career-induced stress. Over the last 20 years, broken relationships have been a major causal factor for the highest documented divorce rate and resulting suicides in this population. This program, From Warriors to Citizen, is delivered free to families by professionals, all whom served in uniform and understand the needs to be addressed. I ask for your support. So please go to our website, warriorstocitizen.org, and find out how you can help, either by making a donation or sharing this information with an American hero that you may know. And thank you.
And I want to mention one other thing right quick. We work very closely with Rick White, who is the director of the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame here in Atlanta, Georgia. And it's in the Floyd building right across the street from the Capitol. And Rick does just a fantastic job. And he has certainly been a big help to me on this show. And I just want to always give a shout out to Colonel Rick White, retired, and what a wonderful job. And if you haven't been to the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame, then please if you live in Atlanta, make plans to go down and see it. If you're coming to Atlanta, make plans, put that on your to-do list, and you'll enjoy every minute. And they even have a good cafeteria there. So please remember the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame, downtown Atlanta, right across the street from the Capitol building. So with that being said, that sort of is a good sway or swag into what you're doing now, Paul, and what y'all are doing up in Dahlonega.
You really don't appreciate the United States of America until you've been to a third world country and been through something like Vietnam. And it really made me appreciate this country ever since I've been back. And back a few years ago, a good friend of mine wanted to do a community service project. We started it with the Masonic Lodge up here. And we decided to honor our deceased veterans by making memorial markers, veterans memorial markers for our deceased veterans, and lining the streets of Dahlonega with them. And a friend of mine came up with the idea, and of course I've got a woodworking shop, and I like to make sawdust, so I said I could make them, and I've kind of spearheaded the project ever since. We started it in 2000 with 28 memorial markers, and last November, when we took them down from the streets, we had exactly 900.
Wow.
So even for a small town like Dahlonega, I've got 14 different teams that go out and put up approximately 60 markers per team, and there's 10 to 12 people per team that volunteer to help. So there's 150 volunteers that show up to put these things up and take them down and help maintain them. I've got volunteers that help me build them, help me paint them. It's just amazing, the esprit de corps up here in Dahlonega.
And of that 900, were they all citizens of Dahlonega at one time or something, or are they just
they're
random?
One of the requirements is you have to be a citizen of Dahlonega or Lumpkin County, and it started off for loved ones and family members, and since then it was growing so fast we couldn't maintain, so we've narrowed it down to Lumpkin County residents, and then the person has to have lived in Lumpkin County at one point or another. Dahlonega is a military town. The Army the Army Rangers do their mountain training up here, so Camp Merle's up here, and there's a lot of Rangers that have gone through the mountain training and love the area, and when they retire, they come back. So we've got a good military presence in the area.
I've run their Mother's Day 5K up there.
Oh, okay.
And it is beautiful. And I've been to their little museum that they have. I assume they still have it.
They do.
It's not too big, but I love museums.
Yeah, it's not big. It's a small little building, but it's really interesting.
Yes, sir. And I think all Rangers go there, and I think any of the other special forces train there as well, don't they?
I don't know about the other special forces, but they do. The Rangers do their mountain training here. Yes.
And Ranger being back in the day the Green Berets.
Yep.
And that's very interesting. That area provides so much. What am I trying to say? Of mountain climbing and all sorts of obstacles and the training that you need to go almost anywhere.
It's. I've got a couple close friends that went through that, and what they tell me, I thought Vietnam was bad, but I think the mountain ranger course here is probably almost, other than the fact you don't have anybody shooting at you. But they work the guys hard. They take them out for days at a time. Just barely enough food to survive on. They work them 20, 22 hours a day, sleep deprived them. They want to break them down and see who can still function and think when they're absolutely wore out and half starving to death. You say they put them on night guard when they're out in the mountains, and he said he'd take his bayonet and put the bayonet underneath his chin, so if he started nodding off, the point would stick him and he'd wake back up, because he said, you sure as heck don't want to get caught sleeping on guard duty.
And once they get through with it, they all head to the Smith House. Is that right?
Yeah, the Smith House gets some fried chicken. You're right.
But anyway, it's. I always like to mention the fact that the military, today's military, if you're a graduating senior from high school, or you're in college and haven't decided what you want to do, I can guarantee you, and I make this guarantee every week, that there is some branch of the military that offers you something that you want to do for life. And the training is incredible. Once you have finished your training or whatever you've decided to do, and if you get your commission or resign your commission and decide you've had enough of the military, when you come out, you're a step ahead of everybody on either side of you, front, back, or sides, that you have been in the military, and on your resume, that makes all the difference in the world, because no matter, well, just like Paul came out as an E5 buck sergeant, he and I were the same on that, and you come out, and no matter what rank you are, you have learned discipline and leadership. And every business in the country wants those two things. They know that they can count on you to do the job, and they know that you will be a leader in your portion of that job. And you're a step ahead of everybody else. And
David, it's just amazing what, you saying that, just amazing what 2 months of basic training and 2 months of AIT, how much that changes an individual.
Yes, sir.
That will make a man out of you, and that carries with you the rest. It teaches you how to take orders or how to give orders. In basic training, I was a couple years older than most of them, so they made me a squad leader. Well, I didn't have any leadership experience, but once you drop and have to do push-ups with the guys in your squad because they screwed up, then you learn how to control your squad.
Absolutely.
But the military is just in 4 months, it really just makes a man out of you. You're right. I think the youth today, everybody, boys and girls, should go through and do 2 years in the military.
Amen. I couldn't agree with you more, and we wouldn't have some of the garbage that's going on today if everybody did. That's one thing that I salute Israel for doing, and I think it's a great plan. And I don't want to be in the military. I tell you what, it's one of the best experiences that I ever had, and like I asked you earlier, you know, I don't know of a veteran in any shape, I might add, that if called upon wouldn't answer the call and go back in a heartbeat. And a lot of them have through this pandemic. The military, a lot of folks don't realize, but what role the military has played in the pandemic, because they know how to get it done.
They know how to. That's right. That's one thing the military teaches you. Two things. It teaches you how to give an order, and it teaches you how to take the order.
Yes, sir. No question about it.
And that's basically what basic training in AIT is all about. It's if you're told to do something, do it. Don't argue about it. Just shut up and do it. And get her done.
That's right. Who has a driver's license? You raise your hand and, well, there, go drive that wheelbarrow.
Yep. And don't throw a cigarette butt on the ground, because they'll make you dig a hole and bury it, and then they'll say which end has the filter on it, and you'll say this end, and they'll say that you buried it the wrong way. Dig it up and turn it around.
Yeah, fill that hole up now. Dig that hole, or dig a hole now. Fill it up.
Yep, you dug a hole, fill it up.
But it's
but it's all discipline. Yeah, it really grounds you.
And it's you know, I guess the first big realization is when you see your locks fall on the ground as they have just given you a buzz cut.
Oh boy!
In the barbershop, and then
not you so much as you look at the guy next to you and say, "Oh my God, am I going to look like that?" You know.
And come to find out, we all look the same, don't we?
That's right. It equalizes you really quickly.
Yes, sir. And you know, like I said, everybody should experience it. And there's no, well, I've done this, I've done that. No, if you haven't gone through basic and AIT, like Paul said, you haven't done it. And I was very blessed that I was in the reserves, but it has given me the opportunity to talk to people like you, Paul. And a lot of vets won't talk to you if you're not a vet of some sort. And
yeah, well, people don't. I've spoken to the Breakfast Rotary Club, but I've been the guest speaker at the Noon Rotary Club, and they've been really supportive of this Memorial Marker project. But it's, you know, there's a lot of people that just don't really appreciate the military and the sacrifices people in the military have to make just to be in the military. I think today it pays a little bit better. I know it does a lot better than when I was in there. That $170 a month I got, hazardous duty pay, didn't go very far, but there's a lot of sacrifices when if you're married and have children and have to leave your family and what have you. But that's what keeps America America.
Absolutely. Paul, I hate to say it, but you've just gone through a whole hour with me, and we're going to have to shut it off. But the one thing I would like to ask, will you come back and be on again?
I'd be glad to. I didn't think I'd find enough to talk about for an hour, but you're really easy to talk to and really bring it out of me.
Well, thank you, sir, and it's been a pleasure having you on, and we will be back in contact. You're listening to America's Web Radio and David's Pick. It will be on our website very shortly, so tune in and listen to Paul again. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, David, and God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, this is Rocky Blair, former